Good morning. So I'm working on Dashkin today. So good morning. I don't have any energy drinks today, so I may just become really crabby and leave. But we'll see. So the question is, I got a few things on my list. Go through and mark debug options in missions clearly. So it looks like Adam added more missions. That's good. The ball control missions, I guess. So what we'd want to do is we'd want to add probably little tooltips or something on these things. Is that what we want? And these are generated code, right? I mean, I do have some coffee, I just haven't used any of it. So let me think. If I went through my game options, and I added something else to our templates for them, would that add this as debug? Let's see. Just add a comment block above your U property. Unreal will automatically pick it up and use it as a tooltip for you. Okay, so what we want to do is when we have an object, we want to add a thing above it for the comment. So it's basically going to be if there is a comment on the object. So if I added something like this where I have a comment for object.variable as variable.name, so I guess it's going to be if variable.comment question mark. Yeah, it's 2 question marks. Alright, well let's see what that does then. So I should have added a comment to our stage completion object. And I'm just waking up today. So let's go to our generated object. So yesterday I was working on the Maelstrom telemetry stuff. Today I'm working on Dashkin stuff. I'm not sure when I'll get back to the Maelstrom stuff. I still need to talk to them about they don't really have a whole bunch of needs for platform short-term work. So I need to talk to them about more long-term work. Yeah, so we've got this debug comment here. So the template did get picked up. Let's see if it actually generates that tooltip like we want. I should probably go through and add comments for everything, right? That could make sense. What even does debug do? It's just going to tell Adam that he doesn't need to worry about what this thing does. So there's basically, inside of these generated objects, there are things that he can change in order to configure the mission. And then there are things that are just like, well, that's there because the UI does stuff with it in code. Ignore it. Like, whatever you set there is going to get blown away. So don't worry about that little guy. You know, like, don't change that thing. So it's going to be an indication so he doesn't get all confused as to, do I need to set the stage completion for these things? What does this, objective state mean? And if he moused over and it said, this means nothing, don't worry about it, then he's not going to use brain power to try to figure it out. And it's kind of also the one thing, a lot of, when you're writing code, a lot of the work you do is actually coming up with good names for things. And, like if you have a mission, if you had completion tier, with completion tier that's what you got when you finished it. That might be really obvious to the person writing it that, oh, that's a good variable name because completion tier means all this other stuff. But somebody else may not have the same idea of it in your brain. So it's kind of funny. Over the years, I've gotten flack for putting in obvious comments. I'll have a function that says, hey, I add two numbers together, and I'll put a little comment at the top of it. I'll say, this function adds two numbers together. And it's like, well, yeah, it's called add two numbers. Yeah, and so people are like, why are you adding comments to that? And you're like, well, maybe me actually saying this adds two numbers together means something different to somebody. So if they have two indicators of what the hell this thing does, it's a lot better than one. Well, because you'll get surprised sometimes. You'll have, add two numbers together, and inside of it, it'll take three numbers. And you're like, well, why does the add two numbers take three numbers? You're like, well, it adds two numbers together and divides them by the third number. It's like, well, why didn't you change that? Well, because it didn't used to take three numbers. Right. Alright, it does point up with debug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to mark every single one of these variables with a sort of comment. So we'll start with debug, not debug, but unused, ignore this. Transient, ignore this. Alright, we'll add that comment. Per tier, best tier, locked and completed. So we start at the top level. Mission. Let's start with log name, header, description, thumb, context, player number. I am just going to add comments all the way from the top. That sounds like a better plan. Best comments are the ones that are snarky. Yeah, that's true. The best comments are also the ones where I was drunk when I wrote this. I don't know what it does. Please don't judge me. Alright, unlock name. This is the short text displayed in the pre-mission screen as an overview of the mission. Description. The long-form text shown on the pre-mission screen and mission selection screen. Thumbnail used in the pre-mission and mission selection screen. Context, result context. Used for online rankings. Leave alone for now. Player number. Unused. Leave as 1. Skill rating. Used to give people an idea of what difficulty the mission is. Keep between 1 through 5. And this should help Adam a lot, and also me a lot in later. And one of the things is, I didn't see Adam doing any mission stuff. I assume he was just drawing, but one of us is going to have to learn the grid system. And it's probably going to be me, because I don't see Adam learning a complex system like that. I'm probably going to have to go figure it out and then force him to do it. Otherwise, I almost like just working in JSON better because it makes sense to me. I'm comfortable with commas and colons and quotation marks. Let's see, result tier. Used for missions with multiple stages with cumulative stats. Alright, win conditions. The win conditions for this mission. Use for conditions. Alright, so objectives. This is a human readable list of objectives, not used anywhere but in UI. Mission completion. Transient, ignore this. Unlocked by. This is the list of missions that must be completed to unlock this mission. This is used to have this mission never be unlocked. Useful for missions planned to be released but not available yet. This is used, always have this mission unlocked. This allows the first mission in a category to be available to play. Next, he's fiddling with UI. Well, of course. There's always more UI in the banana stand. Alright, so mission unlock. Let's get to this. The name of the mission required to be completed to unlock this mission. The tier of completion. Leave as none for just that it has been completed. This is the cool part about having template systems and stuff like this, which allow me to go ahead and edit all this stuff without too much trouble and generate a whole bunch of helpful comments, and I don't have to worry about all the formatting for everything perfectly, and I don't have to bloat up the code. The name of the stage. This is user facing and shows up in the UI. The short intro header in the pre-mission screen describing this mission. Unused yet. Let's see. A short intro message to show up in game when the stage starts. The map which will be used for this stage. The list of map sublevels which will be loaded when the stage starts. Game mode. Global game mode overrides for this stage. So player specific overrides for this stage. Yeah, so the other thing that's kind of cool is since all the mission data is JSON and everything like that, it's definitely possible for us to document the JSON, and if people wanted to make missions and submit them, there's definitely a way that we could have missions that people create and submit. It might not be super easy, but it's possible. We could always think about some sort of tool to do it. Bot specific overrides for this stage. Let's see, actions. A list of strings which can be used by various in-stage actors. No win conditions. Set this if there are no win conditions for the stage. The mission win conditions will be used. Alright, so this is a list of conditions required to win this stage. I should say required to end this stage with a win. That's more clear. Because it may be that it ends the stage, so you might your message. This is a short message to display in the stage before the post-stage defeat screen. Completion message. This is a short message to display in the stage before the post-stage win screen. Intro cutscene. This is the cutscene to play before starting the stage. Result tier. This is the list of conditions for each result tier for this stage. This is a human readable list of objectives displayed in the UI in pre-stage screen. This is the color scheme used for the stage. Find the color schemes in the color schemes folder. Skip pre-stage screen. Set this to true in order to start the stage without any intro UI. Set this to true in order to end the stage and move on without any exit UI. Good for interrupting and transitioning game modes or play cutscenes. Set this to false to not reset the level. This leaves all actors where they are when transition happens. Good for game mode transitions. Set to false, yeah. Good for controlling mode transitions without interrupting play. It's basically like you can go to hard mode and all of a sudden it says everything is hard and plays a cutscene and all the bots just immediately flip to angry forever. Cutscene completion. Transient data, please ignore. Game objective. A human readable short piece of text to describe the objective. Set this to true to always play the cutscene, even if seen before. This controls more specific cutscene information, such as always play. Replace me. Alright. This is a list of conditions required for bronze tier rank. Mission actions. We have an enum and a value. Just gonna say the type of action. The value associated with that action. The stat which will be used to compare. What value we're comparing against, and what sort of comparison. Compares. Usually less than equal. Usually LTE. Game players, doesn't matter. Dashkin user. Missions, user account info, user stats, user stat profile. Awesome. So that should come into absolutely everything. So let's go ahead and generate our code. It's a lot of fun tinkering with options. Well, that's kind of what got me into game development to begin with. Is it's really fun to create stuff, and because game development is always new. There's always something you're doing and setting up and learning, configuring. And if you find that you really like doing all that stuff, some people find that they really do. Well, game development is where you do that all the time, and it never ends. But on the other hand, a lot of people find they'll have done some stuff in high school or something, like made a mod for Arma 3 or, some Half-Life mod or Gary's mod objects. Be like, oh, this is great. I want to do this as a career. And then you're presented with, a 5,000 line text file of, that playlist config. And you're just like, oh my God, kill me. So what you're getting into is the tip of the iceberg of insanity. So it can be deceptive. It can be deceptive. But that's also one part of game development that is psychologically trapping. is that there is definitely a treadmill of, oh, I figured out how to do this complex thing. Well, I can now manage even more complex systems and deal with that now. And you get on this, treadmill of making more and more and more complex systems until basically you've ascended to robothood and become a non-human entity. So you're like, I have solved all the problems. I know what I can do next. I can use all my configuration systems to control people. More fun to make it than watch it. Yeah, I don't know, that resonates with some of the problems I also see in the game industry there, where a lot of people who make games don't play them very often. After a certain point, you'll have some 40-year-old, 50-year-old dudes on your team, and you're like, what's the last game you played? And you're like, oh, I'm a real big fan of games. And, it's like, well, what's the last thing you actually did? And he's like, well, I played a game of League of Legends last month. I lost. Games are hard. There's too many 12-year-olds. Like, no, dude, you just suck at games. 12-year-olds suck at games too. Like, they really do. And if you're worse than they are, you probably haven't been practicing. I mean, your fully developed brain is not a disadvantage in games. 12-year-olds. Oh no. Yeah. Alright, so let's see what this looks like now that we have some stuff. So, this code name of the mission must be unique. Ah, yeah, this is gonna help. This is a human readable list of objectives. Yeah. Yeah, that's really going to help out. Alright, so what's the next thing? The next thing is to actually try to do some in-game widget experimentation stuff. Alright, well, let's boot up our test content then. Okay. So what is my goal here? What I should do is I should actually start sketching out what do I want the UI to have for in-game stuff. So documentation, tech, we got UI here. Is there anything in it that's worth anything? No, this is just the overview of the UI system. So why don't we just make a new diagram? And if you have never used Visio before, this would be in-game mission UI. Let's see, what are we gonna have? Let's actually pull up some other games that have UI for missions. What's a good game recently which has objectives? I know. Let's pull up a game that I've been playing recently, and let's just take a look at what their objectives look like. So I'm just taking some screenshots of various pieces of the UI. And I'm completely fucked for this mission because I went in without any mechs that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to go in with basically what they call a lance of mechs with like 3 or 4 of them, and all of mine were injured from the last match, so I just dumped them in here. So these guys are just totally fucked. But I'm just gonna force kill the game. So what do they got? They've got all sorts of crap in here. So what else do we got? We can click on stuff. It shows everything else. Click off, but we're not going to be clicking off anything. Alright, I think we got what we wanted. Alright, so I'll just throw that up so I can look at. So what should we be looking at? I guess the in-game UI. So it looks like they have a dialog box system. Let's see. They have a kind of a context header up here. And then they have details, and have an objectives list. And the objective list looks like it's got the objective name. It's got the objective icon. You see, this is how I see the world, whereas other people see, you know, like a plus sign in a thing. I see, oh, well, that's just an icon, you know. Let's see, this is objective details, objective status, and that goes down. All right. So then we've got down at the bottom, we have a mouse context. We have a very large object details panel. We have a state, mission state details. Actions bar. Object details 2. And then we have in the top right, we've got our options menu, and we have rarely used details. And we don't have anything in the middle. They've got nothing in this whole quadrant of their screen is completely blank. Alright, so what are the things that we would need? This is that's what that is. So what are the sorts of things that we need? We're definitely going to need the objectives, so we probably want something like the mission name, and then we want the stage. I mean, that objective list is pretty good. I like the idea of the objectives with the objective icons. Options menu, no, we're not going to need that. I should just have the 4 corners of the apocalypse here. This is what you can do when you know Visio. You can do all sorts of stupid shit you're not supposed to. There, it's a wonderful looking box that, you know, doesn't matter. There we go. Wonderful. I definitely think the idea of having a clock here, so it should be our like our, I guess, loss condition or our win conditions. I'm trying to think of basically if we always had like maybe a clock of sorts, because we always have a duration on a mission. We could have maybe the win conditions on the left and the loss conditions on the right, or something like that. But I'm basically trying to come up with, is it a quadrant-based system that I'm going to be working with? I think it is. I think it's quadrants. And I think we only need, we basically need left top, yeah. Left, right, top, bottom. Alright, so we'll do like that. So let's go do the thing. So test content, UI, let's make a new user interface, widget blueprint. Let's call this UI mission HUD. It's a widget. Because what I would like to do is basically script out separate widgets and put those together. But I need to know if that's actually what people do. So I'm going to look at Maelstrom's widgets and see what they've got going on. Their system is kind of fucked up. Like, running, like, they just have compile issues where you have to, like, rebuild stuff because they're checking in all these pieces of data that shouldn't be checked in my opinion. So you go do a build and it's not actually going to build. So let me see if build solution actually triggers these guys to build properly. Widgets for stuff like clocks and objective lists, because I'd like to put them into, you know, if I can make a kind of an anchor system such as, hey, this is like the top middle area and this is the top right and the top left and everything. What I can do is I can say, okay, well, add the clock over here, add this over there, and they can be independent pieces that we work on. So you can go make a, you know, a clock widget, and you can just be like, all right, well, this level has a duration on it, so make a clock. And so the clock just gets put there, and it's just a clock. You know, it does what clocks do. It tells time. And it's self-contained. It doesn't have to know about that there's, you know, something in the top left that has objectives or something else over here. It just knows I'm a clock, and you can put me as a clock anywhere on this screen, and I'm just going to do the clock thing and sit here and tell time. So if I, inside of some other logical controller, said, well, this mission is really important with time, so have a bigger clock. And basically the clock is just like, all right, well, clock is twice as big, and, you know, put it, instead of on the top of the screen, put it at the bottom of the screen. So the idea would be, while this other thing's compiling, if I had one HUD here where I'm putting everything in a hierarchy, that would be difficult because I would have to create different HUD things, etc. And really what I want to do is I want to create small pieces that I could place in areas without too much trouble. That's kind of the idea. Is, you know, life should be easier based on the work that we do, as opposed to life being more difficult and complicated based on the work we do. One would hope. Anyway, I'll be right back. Because what I'd like to do is create different HUDs and put those in there. Such as, you know, we'd have a HUD for different types of missions, and the idea would be we'd have a drop-down selection there that would actually have a HUD type you want to use. So it'd be like, oh, for this mission, use the collect the things HUD, which uses all the same widgets, just maybe in a slightly different configuration. Yeah, I don't know. They've got a really, I don't know. Maelstrom setup's not how I would do it. Basically, they have core changes to the editor, but they don't have their non-engineers build the editor. Their non-engineers are using the built DLLs from the engineers, and they're using the official Unreal editor, but their game doesn't run using the official Unreal editor. It runs using a slightly modified version. So it's like, what the fuck? Like, use everybody should be building Visual Studio. Like, just that's how it should work. It's not that hard. We gotta have them to use Visual Studio. You can get anybody to use Visual Studio. Like, that wasn't even the hard part. That was the easy part. The hard part's been fucking Perforce. And this thing's just gotta build all the crap. Well, while I'm waiting, I can just read some docs. Maybe get back into this. As you start to experiment, you might ask, oh, Jesus Christ, I already hate the tone of this article. For example, if you're creating a simplistic UI... Yeah, fuck. Yeah, see, this... Already the documentation is awful, because it's like, when creating your content in UMG, have in mind the target resolution and build all your widgets off of that resolution. For example, like, just say, like, write this for robots. There is a target resolution for your UMG widgets. Everything needs to be based off that resolution. If you change this, you will have to change every goddamn widget in your entire project, and you'll hate yourself. So pick something reasonable. And never change it. Because they say this again, establishing a target resolution. If you create assets without a resolution, you may have some textures that are bigger and smaller, blah, blah.